You are tuned in to the LowBand Show, broadcasting from the storm drains under the big city, where a tunnel crew runs this booth on salvaged gear, pipes humming, steady water dripping, piping surface science and tech news on a low-band signal through the drains. I'm your host, Max Hertz. Welcome in. Here's what we do. We take real science and tech news from the surface, summarize it, then go deeper to educate, entertain, and shed light on what's in store for our collective future. News from the net, clear signal, and a little tunnel. If you came for hype, you took a wrong turn at the storm drain.
Welcome in, underground and on the air. Max Hertz here. Wiz, good to have you in the booth today.
Good to be back, Max. Ready when you are.
Today on the board, we're looking at some big questions from the surface. The potential links between smartphones and fertility, and the ongoing saga of open source software with EuroOffice 1.0. We'll also dive into the future of gaming as the Xbox CEO discusses margins, get an update on NASA's Artemis 3 mission astronauts, and examine a critical Linux vulnerability. It's a packed show of real surface news, truth first, with our usual tunnel commentary. Let's get into it. The headline promises a lot. Can a device we all carry actually reshape global demographics? A study by University of Cincinnati professors, published June 4th, 2026, asks, is the iPhone birth control? Causal evidence from AT&T's 2007 to 2011 carrier monopoly. It suggests smartphones may contribute to falling birth rates. Wiz, what's your take?
It's a bold claim to link a consumer electronic directly to demographic shifts, but the framing of contributed rather than caused is important. It implies a cascade of behavioral changes, not a direct mechanical effect.
Two recent studies argue that smartphones may have contributed to falling birth rates by reducing in-person social interaction, sexual frequency, and other conditions tied to unintended pregnancies. One of these, the collapse of teen fertility in the digital era, was chronicled by KTLA.
The idea that technology mediates social interaction isn't new, but connecting it directly to fertility rates due to reduced in-person contact is a strong hypothesis. It suggests a fundamental shift in how relationships form, or don't form.
The May study, by University of Cincinnati professors, notes teen fertility collapsed globally around 2007, the iPhone's release year. They say smartphones changed how teens spend time with each other. This change, in turn, drove the collapse in teen fertility. Wiz, for our listeners, what does causal evidence imply?
Causal evidence means the researchers aim to show a direct cause and effect relationship, not just a correlation. They're trying to prove the iPhone made fertility rates drop, rather than observing them coincidentally declining at the same time.
The study published just Monday looks specifically at the United States, finding general fertility rates have fallen 22% since 2007. This decline is not readily explained by typical factors like economics or contraception. They assess the role of smartphone diffusion instead.
A 22% drop in general fertility is significant, especially if it's resistant to standard explanations. Pinpointing smartphone diffusion as the different shock is clever, particularly by using the early iPhone's AT&T exclusivity as a natural experiment.
From June 2007 through February 2011, the iPhone was sold only on AT&T, allowing researchers to identify its effect from variation in AT&T's mobile broadband coverage. Access to the iPhone reduced births by 4.5 to 8.6% at ages 15 to 19 and 3.2 to 6.6% at ages 20 to 24.
Those are substantial percentage reductions directly linked to iPhone access, particularly for younger cohorts. The placebo analyses for other carriers strengthen the argument that it wasn't just a general trend, but something specific to iPhone diffusion.
Overall, the diffusion of the iPhone explains 33 to 52% of the decline in the general fertility rate among women aged 15 to 44. National survey evidence is consistent with the iPhone reducing in-person interactions, increasing pornography use, and reducing sexual frequency.
Explaining up to half of the fertility rate decline is a massive impact from a single device. The behavioral shifts, less interaction, more online content consumption, reduced sexual frequency, are entirely plausible mechanisms for that outcome.
While the evidence points to strong correlation and even causal links in these studies, it remains to be seen how these findings will influence policy or public health discourse. It's still early days for understanding the full societal impact. The fight here is about digital sovereignty, a concept gaining significant traction, especially in Europe. A coalition of EU-based companies, including Nextcloud and Ionos, has officially launched EuroOffice 1.0 today, June 11th, 2026. They're positioning it as a new open-source, browser-based alternative to Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. However, the Document Foundation, stewards of LibreOffice, argues that EuroOffice's approach undermines true open standards. Wiz, what's your initial read on this tension?
The core claim is digital sovereignty, which is a powerful idea. But immediately we see a clash, as EuroOffice's underlying choices might reinforce existing proprietary standards, exactly as TDF suggests. It sounds like a branding exercise versus a true technical shift.
Delving into what EuroOffice actually brings, its backers explain in an FAQ that it's more of an integration component, handling document editing itself. Storage, navigation, permissions, and sharing logic must be provided by a platform it's integrated into, like Proton Docs or Nextcloud Hub. So while you can install it on your own Linux server, integration is required, though some companies have released packaged stacks. Now, the main point of contention from the Document Foundation is EuroOffice's decision to default to Microsoft's OOXML format. For listeners who may not be familiar, Wiz, can you briefly explain what OOXML is and why TDF views it as a problem for digital sovereignty?
OOXML stands for Office Open XML. It's Microsoft's default document format, primarily used by Office applications. TDF's concern is that defaulting to OOXML, even in an open source suite, means you're still tied to Microsoft's ecosystem and its specific behaviors, rather than truly open, community-driven standards. Their point is, compatibility is not sovereignty.
That distinction is crucial. It seems there's a significant philosophical divide on how to achieve digital independence. Whether EuroOffice can truly deliver on its promise while navigating these format complexities remains to be seen. This one made me sit up because it really hits on a crucial challenge for a major player in the gaming world. Bloomberg reported on June 10th, 2026, that the Xbox CEO says their current margins simply cannot continue. It's a stark admission about the state of their business, and it raises big questions about their future strategy. Wiz, what's your initial reaction to that headline?
It's less a headline and more a financial distress signal. When your CEO says the current path is unsustainable, it usually means the current path is unsustainable. And the details they offered back that up.
The memo from CEO Asha Sharma and Chief Content Officer Matt Booty lays out some specific reasons. They stated, excluding Activision Blizzard King, over the past 5 years, we have spent over $20 billion on ongoing investments in our content, platform, and hardware subsidy, but our annual revenue has declined nearly $500 million during that time. Going forward, this cannot continue. Wiz, for listeners who might not be completely familiar, what is Activision Blizzard King, and why is it explicitly excluded from these numbers?
Activision Blizzard King is the massive video game publisher behind franchises like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush. Microsoft only acquired them fairly recently, so excluding their revenue and spending helps show the underlying financial health, or lack thereof, of Xbox's asterisk pre-acquisition business. And that $500 million decline is not a rounding error.
They also acknowledged another significant impact. We are currently unable to make as many consoles as players want to buy, and we need a new business model and partnerships for hardware as we remain committed to Helix. Wiz, 2 terms there for our listeners. What is RA-Mageddon, which they mentioned earlier in the article, and what exactly is Project Helix in this context?
RAM-Mageddon refers to a past industry-wide shortage of crucial computer memory components, specifically RAM chips, which severely impacted console manufacturing. Project Helix is simply the code name for Xbox's next-generation console. So they couldn't build enough of the old ones, and the new ones need a fundamentally different approach. That's a double hit on hardware.
Finally, there's a candid admission about their studio strategy. We have found ourselves overextended as we executed on changing strategies in a landscape of more readily available content. Adding that with so many good games and other entertainment available, going forward, our competition is attention.
That's a brutal reality check. Buying up studios was a land grab for exclusive content, but if you can't fund, manage, and release those games effectively, it becomes a liability. And the competition is attention line is a pivot from hardware wars to the broader media landscape. They're admitting the old playbook is broken.
The Bloomberg report also suggests substantial Xbox cuts are expected after Microsoft's fiscal year ends on June 30th. It seems the shift in strategy is going to involve some difficult decisions, and the full extent of those changes remains to be seen. Here's the breakdown. NASA has named the crew for Artemis 3, a mission reworked into a crucial Earth orbit test of lunar landers. NBC News reported on August 12, 2026. This changes immediate objectives. Wiz, what's your initial reaction?
So it's less about the moon landing for this mission and more about proving out the hardware for the next one. A shakedown cruise for lunar landers, essentially. A pragmatic pivot considering the complexities.
Randy Bresnik, Luca Parmitano, Frank Rubio, and Andre Douglas are expected to launch into Earth orbit next year, with the goal of testing 2 commercially developed lunar landers that are slated to carry astronauts to the surface of the moon during the Artemis 5 mission in 2028.
That clarifies the shift. Artemis 3 is now explicitly about validating the lander technology for Artemis 4. It's a critical de-risking step, and the emphasis is clearly on the hardware's performance under crewed conditions, rather than a lunar touchdown right away.
Jeremy Parsons, NASA's Artemis program manager, said during NASA's announcement, "This test flight will enable us to prove we can carry out highly choreographed operations with our partners across hardware interfaces, software propulsion systems, and life support elements, with crew in the high-stakes space environment." Wiz, for listeners who may not know, can you give us a brief on Andre Douglas, who's making his spaceflight debut?
Andre Douglas is an engineer who previously worked on space exploration and robotics at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab. He became a NASA astronaut in 2022 and was the backup crew for the Artemis 2 mission. It's a significant step up to specialist on this pivotal test flight.
Bresnik will be the mission's commander, with Parmitano, an Italian astronaut with the European Space Agency, serving as the pilot. Douglas and Rubio will be mission specialists, and Bob Hines will train with the crew as a backup member.
So, a clear command structure with seasoned astronauts in key roles. The mission specialists, including Douglas, round out a team focused on validating these new lander systems. The backup role for Hines also highlights the redundancy in planning.
Bresnik has been to the International Space Station twice, most recently as commander of an expedition in 2017. Parmitano has also done 2 stints on the ISS and served as commander of an expedition in 2019. He has completed a total of 6 spacewalks and also performed the first live DJ set in orbit.
These are highly experienced individuals. Bresnik's command history and Parmitano's extensive EVA experience are invaluable for complex operations. And yes, the DJ set on orbit adds a humanizing, if unexpected, dimension to the high-stakes space environment.
For Rubio, a physician with 28 years of service in the Army, Artemis 3 will be his second trip to space. From 2022 to 2023, he spent 371 days on the space station, breaking the record for longest duration spaceflight by an American, according to NASA.
Rubio's record for longest duration spaceflight by an American speaks to extreme resilience and operational capability. That kind of sustained performance is critical, even for a 2-week mission where unexpected issues can quickly escalate. It's a very solid crew.
Douglas told NBC News in an interview after Tuesday's announcement that the role had at times been a challenge. It was hard to figure out how do you balance getting ready to go, not go, all that stuff, he said. But to go now is just fantastic.
Douglas's honesty about the backup experience is telling. The psychological aspect of preparing without certainty of flight is significant. His excitement now, as a primary crew member, is entirely warranted given the mission's importance.
How these critical tests unfold will be something to watch.
Here's the breakdown. Researchers analyzed a high-severity vulnerability in Linux on June 8, 2026. It's a critical flaw that allows untrusted users to gain root privileges due to a single errant character in the kernel. Wiz, this sounds like a typo with teeth.
Indeed. A single misplaced exclamation point can corrupt memory, leading to a use-after-free vulnerability. It's a classic programming error with outsized consequences when it's in something as fundamental as the Linux kernel.
The vulnerability, tracked as CVE 2026-23111, is located in NF_tables, a subsystem of the Linux kernel that provides packet filtering capabilities. For listeners who may not be familiar, Wiz, what exactly is a CVE?
A CVE, or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, is essentially a dictionary identifier for publicly known cybersecurity vulnerabilities. It provides a standardized name for a specific flaw, making it easier to track and share information about it across the industry. In this case, it's a memory corruption vulnerability called use after free, which impacts how a system deletes and manages packet filtering rules.
The exploit works by disrupting the deletion of verdicts within the NF_tables framework. When a verdict map is deleted from memory, catch-all elements are deactivated, and a chain's reference counter is decremented. When errors occur, the deletion can be reversed and the counter incremented. This vulnerability allows that process to be altered.
So the exploit can essentially trick the system into decrementing this reference counter an arbitrary number of times. This then allows it to delete and free a chain of objects even when other parts of the system are still using them. That's a textbook path to privilege escalation.
Although the kernel vulnerability was fixed in February, multiple proof-of-concept exploits have since emerged, including one from Fuzzing Labs in April and another from Exodus Intelligence that works on Debian and Ubuntu. Wiz, for listeners who may not know, what are Exodus Intelligence, Debian, and Ubuntu?
Exodus Intelligence is a cybersecurity research firm known for finding and selling zero-day vulnerabilities. Debian and Ubuntu are two of the most popular distributions of the Linux operating system. The fact that proof-of-concept exploits exist for these specific distributions means the vulnerability is not just theoretical, it's actively exploitable, even if the kernel itself has been patched.
Given these proof-of-concept exploits, it's still unclear how widely this vulnerability might have been exploited in the wild before the fix, and if systems have been fully patched. The full impact remains to be seen. All right, that's our board for today. We looked at how smartphone diffusion might be influencing fertility rates and the evolving landscape of digital sovereignty with EuroOffice. Then we heard from the Xbox CEO on the challenging economics of the gaming industry and NASA's announcement of the Artemis 3 astronaut crew. Finally, we considered a significant Linux kernel vulnerability and the implications of its public exploits. Plenty of open questions still on all these fronts, from societal impact to technological shifts and the future of space exploration. We'll keep a close eye on these threats and many others emerging from the noise as we continue to track the signals coming through the grid.
It's certainly a lot to consider. If we missed an angle or you have further questions on these topics, please drop us a comment. We read them down here in the tunnel. And if this signal helped you stay informed, a like or subscribe keeps the pipes humming. More surface news and deeper dives are coming through the grate soon. Until then, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on the LowBand Show.